This is my filmmaker research presentation on Steven Spielberg. A quick little bio. He's best known as an American filmmaker for his roles as a director, a producer, and a writer. He was born to parents from Russian Jewish immigrant families, so those themes of familial or religious impacts often come up a lot in his films. Um, and he's best known for a lot of the blockbuster kind of major industry changing movies that a lot of people still love. So some of those are Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T. Extraterrestrial, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, West Side Story, or The Fablemans. He got his start in filmmaking really young, at least for most people. He would often just kind of make little films in his backyard or around his house with his siblings and his parents. Um, and his family always was kind of very free spirited, his mother specifically. So he takes a lot from her in his films. But one of his major stories that he always talks about, or that people always talk about with him, is that he kind of got his spark for filmmaking when he explored the Universal lot after sneaking away from a tour when he was a kid. So I included a little quote from an interview that he gave about that story. But yeah, he started making films just kind of realizing that he could play with his own little world and then replay it, which he really liked being able to watch it back. Some of his early films and projects were the first self written and directed one that he's really known for. It was called Firelight, that he made when he was 16. And then he created a film called Amblin when he was at Cal State Long Beach as a student film that caught the eyes or caught the attention of Universal Studio execs, which kind of led to his first real directing job for TV on the show called The Night Gallery. And then his first feature film I wanted to highlight that he directed for was called Duel in 1971. And then I created several slides with the clips of some of his most famous movies that a lot of people really love to highlight, and just included a couple points of things that I really take away from the film. So for Jaws in 1975, I really wanted to focus on his adaptability to props and environment, and then new ways of inciting tension and fear in the audience. Because with the prop that they had for the shark, a lot of it he didn't feel looked real enough, so he adapted to it and the environment that they were in, being the ocean, which the shark would sink a lot. So they really kind of transferred the fear for the audience into not seeing the shark, and focused a lot on the sound design with that as well. So I'll just play a little bit of this clip. But yeah, while this clip does highlight a lot of the shark, this is kind of in the penultimate scenes at the end where the whole movie has been built up to not seeing the shark. So in the final scene, they did highlight it a little bit more. Okay. The next film I wanted to focus on was his 1981 film Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I feel like really I wanted to highlight for the exposition of it, kind of using the lighting and the world building of this scene to kind of tell the audience where they're at, like what's going to happen, but also to create like this different form of reality for the audience and really just immediately pull them into the story. Awesome. Next film. Awesome. The next film that I wanted to highlight was Jurassic Park that came out in 1993. I feel like this scene specifically, again, pulls on his way of creating fear and tension for the audience. But I also did want to highlight the cinematography of it with the forced, not forced perspective, but forced proximity of the characters and the dinosaurs and pulling on the idea of utilizing props really well again, I think is really captured in this scene. But yeah, specifically that last shot of them just barely being separated from the velociraptors with this little metal countertop, basically, I think really was a unique way of showing the different shots for it, of having them be so close and, yeah, again, just like re inciting that fear in the audience being on the edge of their seat. The next film I wanted to highlight was Schindler's List, which I really like for his use of color and perspective, but also for his directional vision and consideration, being that he had always been asked to tell different stories from the Holocaust since he had become a more prevalent director in his career, but he never wanted to take that step too soon and be disrespectful or not show it in the right way, I guess. And he discussed his use of color, being that he wanted the film to focus solely on like the storytelling and the visuals and not take away from it with color at all. But he does use it in this scene to highlight the little girl in the red dress. And again, the cinematography of this scene following her through the chaos um, that he had directed around her, I think is really beautiful. But yeah, this scene does go on, but I just wanted to include a little bit of it because it is actually shot from where Oscar Schindler actually witnessed this little girl in a red coat go on. So I thought it was really interesting that he shot it specifically from the moment where it happened in real life. And then the last film I wanted to discuss was Saving Private Ryan. I just wanted to discuss it for the sake of how he kind of, again, was taking on a harsher reality in the film. And in this introductory scene, he immediately has such a large scale set and a large scale production that it immediately pulled audiences into it. And I think really emphasized what the film was going to be, um, unlike a lot of the war movies at the time that were less realistic or less true to how it would have been for the characters at the time. But yeah, just a little bit of that scene because that sequence is pretty long. Um, I think the way also in which it's so immediately abrupt in this film, it really just kind of pulls you in automatically with the characters, and specifically the cinematography of this shot pulls you in because it is from the point of view of someone in the vehicle that they were all in. And then I just wanted to put a little slide here at the end of what I think can really be learned or taken away from these series of assignments, following Steven Spielberg specifically as such a big, prevalent name as a filmmaker. I think the way in which he has such consideration and such meaning and importance put into his films, and also the way that he considers the audience when creating films, I think is really beautiful. So I put a little quote about that here, um, where he discusses the audience being able to say, I'm part of the story, which I think is really beautiful. Reminding himself whenever he's making a movie and on set that at the end of the day, it is all for the audience and because of the audience that we get to do this job. And so, yeah, I just put a little tidbit at the bottom of what I really would like to take away from him for my career in film. But yeah. And then here are all of my sources, and I believe that is it. Thank you.